It's the middle of the night, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. On board an American warship, a radar operator is watching a screen. It's a quiet shift, which is usual out here. There's nothing around them for 1,000 miles. Then a blip appears on the screen, and it's moving fast. Faster than anything that should be there. It was a ballistic missile. It's coming from a country 4,000 kilometers away, a distance nobody thought its missiles could cross. Out here, there are no cities, no borders, no allies to defend. There is nothing in this ocean worth attacking, except for one thing, a tiny island, so small you could walk from one side to the other in an afternoon. So obscure that on most world maps, it doesn't even get a label. It's just a dot, yet powerful enough that a nation would launch one of its most expensive weapons just to destroy it. So, what is on that dot? This is Diego Garcia, a horseshoe-shaped coral atoll in the center of the Indian Ocean. It consists of just 30 square kilometers of land, a thin strip of white sand and palm trees enclosing a quiet lagoon. Look north, and the nearest land is the Maldives, 700 kilometers away. In every other direction, there is only open water. Yet, global strategists call this remote speck of dust the unsinkable aircraft carrier. It is a description of pure geography, a paradox of absolute isolation and absolute military value. The engineering of this outpost converts absolute isolation into global reach. At its core sits a 12,000-foot runway, built specifically to launch heavy B-52, B-1B, and B-2 stealth bombers. Massive fuel depots, radar stations, communications systems, and port berths capable of handling major warships turn the narrow sand rim into a self-contained military machine. From this near-equatorial position, the base escapes major cyclone tracks, permitting year-round flight operations. Its location sits roughly 3,000 kilometers from both the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Strait of Malacca, placing it within striking distance of the world's most vital maritime choke points. But the real power of Diego Garcia lies inside its sheltered lagoon, functioning through a logistics strategy called prepositioning. In plain terms, this means storing tanks, ammunition, spare parts, and mobile hospitals in advance. Enormous cargo vessels remain anchored in these quiet waters for years at a time. This floating stockpile ensures that when a crisis erupts, the heavy equipment is already there, waiting for troops to fly in and deploy. The ships do not move, but their presence speaks of a quiet, permanent readiness. During the 1991 Gulf War, B-52 bombers took off from Diego Garcia to fly some of the longest combat missions in modern history, launching strikes across Iraq. After September 11th, the atoll became a primary strategic hub, sustaining round-the-clock bomber sorties and massive logistical pipelines for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Decades later, this same air and logistics network supported United States air campaigns against Houthi forces in Yemen throughout 2024 and 2025. Then, in March 2025, the runway hosted a highly visible show of force. 6 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers from the 393rd Expeditionary Bomb Squadron, supported by KC-135 tankers. This deployment represented nearly 1/3 of the entire operational United States stealth fleet. Positioned in the central Indian Ocean, these nuclear-capable aircraft sent a clear strategic signal to Tehran. For over 50 years, military planners operated under a comfortable assumption that Diego Garcia's absolute isolation was its greatest shield, providing limitless reach while remaining entirely out of enemy reach. Underneath the shadow of the modern airfield lies the quiet site of East Point. Decades ago, a plantation village populated this narrow strip of land. Families lived in wooden homes, built alongside a church, a school, and a small hospital. A narrow-gauge railway ran through the coconut groves, hauling harvests to the harbor docks. Coconut cultivation and copra processing, the drying of coconut meat to extract its valuable oil, formed the economic foundation and daily routine of the settlement. Across the wider archipelago, roughly 2,000 Chagossians lived in these isolated communities. They were the descendants of enslaved Africans and Indian laborers brought to the islands under colonial rule. Over 5 generations, they forged a distinct heritage, developing their own creole language, vibrant musical styles, and religious traditions. Witness Lisabi Elise recalled a happy life, one that did not lack anything. Today, thick tropical jungle covers the remains of the old plantation. The wooden houses have vanished, buried under dense green canopy. Not a single Chagossian remains on Diego Garcia. In 1961, Pentagon planners began searching the Indian Ocean for a secure foothold to monitor Soviet movements and support Western military operations. Relying on foreign hosts carried political risks, as Allied governments could revoke base access at any moment. The solution lay in a direct deal with London. In 1965, Britain detached the Chagos archipelago from colonial Mauritius, establishing the British Indian Ocean Territory. Behind closed doors, the United States offered Britain a steep discount on Polaris submarine-launched ballistic missiles. In return, Washington secured a 50-year lease. But the strategic concept demanded absolute control. Through restricted diplomatic channels, administrators agreed on a final condition. Diego Garcia had to be made available entirely unpopulated. The depopulation began quietly. In 1968, islanders who traveled to Mauritius for medical care or holidays were suddenly blocked from boarding return ships, separated indefinitely from their homes. Soon, administrators choked off incoming supplies. Food and medicine shipments dwindled, forcing families to choose between starvation and departure. By 1971, physical coercion replaced administrative pressure. British and American personnel rounded up the residents' pet dogs. They lured the animals into sealed sheds with raw meat, piped in exhaust fumes from military vehicles to asphyxiate them, and burned the carcasses in front of their owners. That's when the nightmare started, one survivor recalled. The remaining families were packed onto overcrowded cargo vessels like the MV Nordvair. Forced into dark holds, passengers slept on bird droppings while livestock and horses rode on the deck above. Disembarked on the docks of Port Louis in the Seychelles, they received no housing, jobs, or transition support. Lisabi Elise remembered the sudden, permanent loss of a life that had lacked nothing. The descendants of these displaced families still live in abject poverty, carrying the weight of an unresolved, intergenerational exile. On March 21, 2026, 2 ballistic missiles reportedly launched from Iran, targeting Diego Garcia. The flight path spanned nearly 4,000 kilometers across the Indian Ocean, a distance roughly twice the range of Tehran's previously declared strike limit. While official military logs remain classified, reports indicate one projectile suffered a catastrophic propulsion failure mid-flight. An Aegis-equipped United States warship intercepted the second. The Pentagon reported no casualties and no physical damage to the runway, leaving the true extent of the operation unverified. Yet, the event exposes a rapidly shifting geopolitical reality. For over 50 years, the base relied on the vast, empty ocean as its absolute armor. Today, long-range missiles, persistent satellite surveillance, and cyber warfare have compromised that shield. Isolation no longer guarantees safety. The International Court of Justice ruled in 2019 that Britain's administration of the Chagos archipelago was illegal, declaring its decolonization incomplete. In May 2025, London and Mauritius signed a treaty. Britain agreed to transfer sovereignty to Mauritius, leasing back Diego Garcia for 99 years at an annual cost of roughly £100 million. Yet, the agreement guarantees no justice for the displaced. While resettlement on outer islands remains under discussion, Chagossians are still barred from returning to Diego Garcia more than 50 years after their exile. Chagossian leader Olivier Bancoult described this continuing exclusion as callous and shameful. Today, Diego Garcia sits at the center of a tense Indian Ocean rivalry involving the United States, China, India, Mauritius, and Britain. Sovereignty has shifted, but the island remains a heavily fortified outpost of closed borders. Subscribe to follow this investigation. Today, the concrete runway remains a fortress in an increasingly volatile ocean. Sovereignty has traded hands, but the gates remain locked. For the exiled Chagossians, Diego Garcia is no strategic dot. It is a stolen home, and the true cost of making it powerful is still being paid.